You may be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. On his first day of school, Forrest Gump waits for the bus to arrive. The doors open. He stands there staring blankly. "You coming along?" the bus driver asks him. "Mama said not to be taking rides from strangers." "This is the bus to school. I'm Forrest Gump. I'm Dorothy Harris." "Well, now we ain't strangers anymore." Bus driver smiles at Forrest as he steps up onto the bus. He walks down the aisle looking for a seat. He hears shouts of, "Seat taken, can't sit here." Finally, a young girl in the back of the bus says, "You can sit here if you want." Forrest sits down after a short conversation about his magic shoes. Ginny puts her hand out, and Forrest reaches over, shakes her hand. "I'm Ginny. I'm Forrest Gump." From that day on, the two of them were inseparable. As Forrest says, we were like peas and carrots. What makes this scene so beautiful is how one little act of kindness towards a stranger can change someone's life. We are commanded not to oppress or wrong the stranger, the widow and the orphan. It says that twice in Parshat Mishpatim. "If you do mistreat them, I will heed their outcry as soon as they cry out to me, and my anger shall blaze forth, and I will put you to the sword, and your own wives shall become widows, and your children orphans." God reminds us that we know the feeling of being a stranger, the feeling of being considered less than in the eyes of the mighty. Rashbam, Rashi's grandson, teaches us, due to our personal experience of such a status, we, better than anyone else, know that seeing that the oppression of strangers is a great wrong. The punishment for violating such a commandment is equally harsh. As Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch wrote, "The dignity and human rights of any person are not dependent on their origin, nationality, or possessions, and not related to any outside factor. The special reason given in the Torah, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." It comes to reinforce this rule and to prevent any transgressions of this principle. Your suffering in Egypt was based on being strangers there. And as such, you were not entitled, according to the prevailing mentality, to become a nation, to have a homeland, or even to exist. And they believed that they had a right to treat you according to their caprice. As strangers, you were denied rights in Egypt, and this was the whole basis for the slavery and the suffering that the Egyptians imposed on us. Nachmanides adds that the stranger is not surrounded by family, friends, or community. The stranger is one who lives outside the normal securities of home and belonging. They are, or they feel, alone. And throughout the Torah, God is especially sensitive to the sigh of the oppressed, the feelings of being rejected, the cry of the unheard. This is the emotive dimension of the command to not oppress or wrong the stranger. 36 times, some say even 46 times, we are commanded to love the stranger, to not oppress or wrong the stranger. Chizkuni, a 13th century French commentator, he taught us that this commandment is taught over and over and over again because the stranger is one of the sections of society that is likely to be taken advantage of, as they have no one to stand up on their behalf. He continues, it's easy to get away with taking advantage of them. So God reminds us those 36 or 46 times that we, the Jewish people, we are the ones who must stand up on their behalf. Because we know the pain and the anguish that being othered, that being oppressed causes. We know what that feels like. God heard our cries in Egypt, and God hears the cries of the stranger, the widow, and the orphan. And God asks us, all of us here today, to hear their cries as well, to open our hearts, to treat the stranger, the widow, the orphan with love and compassion. It is a command of humility. In his Mishneh Torah, Rambam teaches us that a person is obligated to show great care for orphans and widows because their spirits are very low and their feelings are depressed. He continues that this applies even if they're wealthy, even if they are the king's own child. We are commanded to show them love, to show them attention. Do not mistreat any widow or orphan. How should we deal with them? One should only speak to them gently and treat them only with honor and respect. One should not cause pain to them by overworking them or aggravate their feelings with harsh words, and we should show more consideration for their financial interests than even our own. He finishes that we should love the stranger, just as God has commanded us to love God. If we are to love God, we also must love the stranger. But loving the stranger might not come naturally to us. Not easy to be Ginny on the bus, reaching out our hand to Forrest Gump. It's much easier to say, seat taken, and move over and not welcome him onto the bus. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory taught, I used to think that the most important line in the Bible was, love your neighbor as yourself. But then I realized, it's easy to love your neighbor because your neighbor is usually quite like yourself. But what's hard? What's hard is to love the stranger, one whose color, culture, or creed is different from your own. That is why the command, love your stranger because you were once strangers, resonates so often throughout the Bible. It is summing us now, today. Jewish law is confronting directly the fact that care for the stranger is not something for which we can rely on our normal moral resources of knowledge, empathy, and rationality. Usually we can, but under situations of high stress, when we feel that our own group, our own neighbors are threatened, we can't see the stranger. We can't hear their cries. The very inclinations that bring out the best in us, our genetic inclination to make sacrifices for our family, that same inclination can bring out the worst in us when we fear the stranger. We are tribal animals, he says, and we are easily threatened by members of another tribe. He asks, why should we not hate the stranger? Because you once stood where the stranger stands now. You know the heart of the stranger because you were once a stranger in the land of Egypt. If you are a human being, then so are they. If you are less than human, or if they are less than human, then so are you. You must fight this hatred, he says, in your hearts, as I once fought the greatest ruler and strongest empire in the ancient world on your behalf. God is telling us to fight for the stranger. God fought for us. We have a duty to fight for the stranger. God says that even if they don't look like us, sound like us, pray like us, they are still God's children. Jonathan Sacks concludes, there's only one reply strong enough to answer the question, why should we not hate the stranger? Because we are the stranger. So what can we do? How can we fulfill the commandments? How can we ensure that strangers living here don't feel othered, don't feel less than? How do we embrace and how do we love the stranger? Just a few months into my rabbinate, I received an email from a nonprofit called Second Nurture. This was founded by Rabbi Susan Silverman, the sister of Sarah Silverman, the comedian. Second Nurture creates circles of compassion and support for foster families so that they are held, resilient, and successful. And that the kids have the loving, growthful relationships and resources that they need to thrive in this really difficult life. As the clergy member at Hamakom who leads our community of caring and our social action departments, I immediately brought this to my committees as a way for Hamakom to provide a safe space for all of these foster families. Each month, we invite them from the greater Los Angeles area to our holy space. Group of dedicated volunteers, from teens to retirees, and we arrive at the synagogue early on a Sunday morning to cook delicious hot meal for these families. From Italian food and Mexican dishes and everything in between. Everyone told me how great my garlic bread was. They always ask, "Rabbi, can you make your garlic bread?" Which I love. It's delicious. We create like catchy menus, little pictures, and we display by the food. We have a welcoming party by the doors as the families trickle in, ushering them into the social hall and helping the younger children to get their lunch and to find their seats. We always ask, do you want a salad with your lunch? No, they just want the bread or the chips or nothing healthy, of course. And then once everyone arrives, all of us, we sit around the table. There could be 40 of us in the table. We eat together, we schmooze together. We show these families all of this love. After lunch, the parents meet with social workers to discuss the topic of the month. While I and the rest of the volunteers, we head outside to the playground as long as it's a nice day. With all of the kids, we have arts and crafts. There was one time where we taught the kids how to make a little volcano, where we dug up all of the sand in the playground, and we poured the baking soda, and we had colored dye and everything, and the vinegar, and it exploded, and then the kids wanted to do it. It was so much fun. We spent about 75 to 90 minutes on the playground with these children, which can be a long time. But those children, they're having the time of their life. They're running around, they're going up and down the slide. We have a brand new play yard, and they are just having the time of their life. Ages, infants to 18-year-olds. It doesn't matter how old they are, they're having fun. And so are we. They're not thinking about the challenges that they have faced. They're embracing life. Some of them for the first time. They feel like they have a home at that synagogue. None of them are Jewish, but that's their home. At the end of every gathering, the children will run up to all of us, all of the volunteers, arms wide open for a hug. Sad that they have to say goodbye. And we give them a 5-minute warning. I have to shout, 5 minutes, we have to go back and meet everybody in the social hall. The kids start crying. I don't want to go home. Can we come back tomorrow? They say, you can come back next month. We can't come back tomorrow. And they give you a big hug. It's just the sweetest thing I've ever seen. Last month, in December, I guess that was 2 months ago now, we hosted a toy drive. Right? It was Christmas, Hanukkah, for Second Nurture. I said, you know what? We're going to meet right before the holidays. Let's do a toy drive. I did not expect how many people would give toys. I put out 2 boxes in our main hallway. They were overflowing with toys for kids all ages. It was amazing. That Sunday morning, as I gathered early to go and cook, we had other volunteers taking all of the gifts and wrapping them. I told him, I'll do the cooking. I'm not good at wrapping presents. My wife can testify that I don't know how to wrap a gift at all. I try my best. Not great, though. But the volunteers who showed up, they spent over an hour wrapping all of these gifts, organizing them by gender and by age. And as the families walked in around 11 o'clock that morning, each child was greeted with multiple presents. Some of these children may have never received a gift in their life. I have never seen such joy in a social hall before. We've ensured that we show these children and the families the love that they deserve. And for many of the children that attend each month, some of them have experienced extremely traumatic experiences. Seen their parents taken away in police cars. Others have never met their biological parents. Others have bounced from home to home, never feeling settled, carrying a trash bag with their clothing, don't know where they're going to go. 2 a.m, gather your supplies, we're getting you out of here. It's awful. We've talked to some of the kids who are about 12 years old, and they're on the play yard and they're playing cops and robbers because they witnessed their parents being taken away. That's the only life they've known. And that's where Second Nurture comes in. They ensure that every child, every family feels the love. That we don't turn our backs on the strangers. Rather, what do? We open our doors, our holy spaces, and we welcome them in. They are one of us. Here in Texas, there are over 31,000 children in foster care. And each and every year, nearly 1,000 of those children age out of foster care when they turn 18, leaving them vulnerable to homelessness and abuse. When you're 18, you're gone. Got to figure out life for your own. So Second Nurture has created a model with the help of local Jewish communities to ensure that these children and these families are not forgotten about. To show these children the love and compassion that this world is a beautiful place. So that they're not going to end up on the streets when they turn 18. Second Nurture's model embraces what it means to love the stranger. And together all of us, we can ensure that the children in foster care right here in Houston, that they can receive that love and that compassion from all of us at Beth Yeshurun. When we as the Jewish community embrace the stranger, when we choose to hear the cries, to open our doors to them, we create a world filled with love. A world where no one has to feel alone. We learn in the Mishnah that one who sustains one soul sustains the whole world. When we welcome the stranger, the widow, and the orphan and provide them with the love and compassion that they need, we heal our world. Shabbat Shalom.